Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Thank you for joining me. This is Francesca coming to you from her bedroom floor because I haven't worked out what I want to do with my set yet, so I'm using this for now and hoping there's enough nice things in the background for it to be kind of enjoyable for you. We shall see. Let me know. So, for context for people who don't know, I graduated with a zoology degree nearly 2 years ago now, and I now work at a nature reserve in the UK, a wetland nature reserve, where my main job is to educate people about bird disturbance and how human activity can really affect the survival of birds, whether that's wintering or nesting or anything in between. So if you would like a more in detail video about that kind of stuff in the future, just drop me a comment or a message. Oh, I can't say comment. Drop me a comment or message on Instagram, and yeah, I will endeavour to do my best. Oh, I just thought I did there. So before my current job, I worked in Costa Rica for 6 months, and my main work was with turtles, and I knew about them, I'd learnt a little bit about them at uni, but I didn't know that much in detail, and so I learnt a hell of a lot while I was out there. During my time in Costa Rica, I was lucky enough to see 3 of the 7 species of sea turtles. So I saw lots of olive ridleys, those were our most common nesting species. I also saw greens nesting, and I was lucky enough to see a leatherback nesting, which, oh my god, the most incredible experience of my entire life, I think. They are just living dinosaurs. They are absolutely incredible. Any clips that I show will be of olive ridley hatchlings. So these were hatchlings that it was my job to relocate them if they were in danger of either being predated on by dogs, they'd been laid in the intertidal zone where they were at risk of being washed away, or if they were in an area where there was excessive light pollution, and so the hatchlings would be very confused and wouldn't make it to the sea necessarily. This hatchery was guarded 24/7. I'm going to go into this in a future video. I'm going to say a bit more about that at the end, but we would guard it 24/7 until the hatchlings were ready to be released, and then we would conduct hatchling releases as close to the site that they were laid as possible. So consequently, I have lots of cute turtle videos which I'm hoping to share with you over my next couple of turtle videos, which is very exciting. So I'm just gonna do a quick fact file of the 7 species, give you some interesting information about them. I'm also going to talk about their life cycle, their threats, and what everyone at home can do to help them. You might think that your life is so far removed from the survival of these species, but honestly, there are some really simple changes that people can make to their day-to-day lives that genuinely make a hell of a difference to the prospects of these animals. So I'm going to dive right into it. So first off, turtles are in the class Reptilia, so reptiles. But what does this actually mean? So they are vertebrates, which means they have a backbone. They are ectothermic, which means that it can be referred to as cold-blooded. That's not technically true. It means that they rely on their environment to regulate their body temperature. So for example, you might see snakes and lizards basking in the sun on a rock. That's because they are trying to use the sun to increase their own body temperature. So turtles do that as well. They have scaly skin. They breathe air through their lungs, and they have a 3-chambered heart. They are in the order Testudines, which is just all turtles and tortoises. And they are in the suborder Cryptodira, which includes tortoises and then soft-shelled, freshwater, snapping and sea turtles. Now, all but 1 species of living turtle are in the family Chelonidae, which means they have shells covered in scutes, which are these things right here. There is only 1 extant, meaning not extinct, species in the family Dermochellidae. Did I get that right? Dermochellidae, and this is the leatherback turtle. Now they have a rubbery shell covered with leathery skin, as the name suggests. They are all on CITES Appendix 1, which means all international commercial trade of them and their products, i.e. their shells and their eggs, is illegal. Sea turtles are found on every continent except Antarctica, and most of them are pretty widespread apart from the flatback turtle, and these guys are only found on the Australian coast. I'm going to put a little graphic here, editing me will help me out. Now this shows the size difference between the different species, and it also shows Archelon, which was an ancient species of sea turtle which went extinct around 66 million years ago. And I mean, look at the size of that, that's insane. They grew up to 13 feet long. So if you look at the size of the leatherback and you think that's big, just think how big those guys were. I'm just going to quickly explain what different designations on the IUCN Red List mean. So this is a list that indicates the global conservation status of different species. First we have data deficient. Now this just means that they do not actually have enough research and data behind them in order to confidently classify a species into one of the other categories. We have least concern, near threatened, vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, extinct in the wild, which essentially means even though they may still be around in captivity, they are no longer around in their wild habitat. So they may still be around in zoos, for example. And then we have finally extinct, which means they're extinct. They are no longer living on this planet. First up, we have the flatback. Now, this species is actually data deficient, so they do not have enough research to classify this species, and this is mainly because they have such a remote habitat. But it's important to remember that they are classified as vulnerable under the Australian Commonwealth Endangered Species Protection Act. So like I mentioned before, other sea turtle species are a lot more widespread. These are kind of an exception. So they only inhabit the coastal waters around northern Australia, southern Indonesia and southern Papua New Guinea, and they only breed in Australia. These guys are omnivorous, so they eat lots and lots of different things, including sea cucumbers, seagrass, fish, mollusks like squid, jellyfish and crustaceans like shrimp. Interestingly, they lay fewer eggs than all the other species, only around 50 per nest, which still seems like a lot, but when you hear how many the other species lay, you'll see why this is kind of an anomaly. But interestingly, they have bigger eggs. Fun fact, they are prey for saltwater crocodiles, which are the largest reptile on Earth. Next we have the olive ridley. So the olive ridley is classified as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List, and there are around 800,000 nesting females. This is actually the most abundant species of sea turtle, but unfortunately their populations are still drastically declining. It has actually decreased by 50% since the 1960s. Like the flatback, these guys are also omnivorous, so they like things like seagrass and algae, and they also like mollusks and crustaceans. These guys have two different nesting strategies, so they are solitary nesters, but they can also form things called arribadas, which are mass nesting events that occur over a couple of days where hundreds and hundreds of olive ridley turtles will descend on particular beaches. And I know there are a couple in the north of Costa Rica where that happens. They lay between 2 and 3 clutches of eggs in a season, with 17 to 45 day intervals in between. It takes them around 1 hour to lay between 80 and 100 eggs, which is kind of a small clutch by sea turtle standards. They do tend to nest in the intertidal zone, so the area between high and low tide. So this means that if they nest too low down, that their nest could be washed away by the tide. Fun fact, they nest in over 40 countries around the world. Next up, we have the green turtle. These guys are endangered. Unfortunately, we don't actually know the number of nesting females left, but we know that it is drastically declining. In comparison with the last two, they are herbivores and they feed almost exclusively on seagrass. Now, they are actually known to be really, really good for seagrass beds. They almost act like gardeners pruning their I was about to say their crops, pruning their plants. So what they do is they'll nibble the tops off of the seagrass but leave the roots. And this kind of pruning is associated with improved health of seagrass beds. Green turtles will take between 2 and 4 hours to lay a clutch of around 105 to 120 eggs. In a nesting season, they will lay between 1 and 7 clutches every 12 to 14 days. But unlike the olive ridley, who nest in the intertidal zone, these guys nest a lot higher up on the beach. They often like to crawl right up to where the vegetation starts. And honestly, because these were the nests that I used to find, you could tell an olive ridley from a green instantly, because the olive ridleys, they'd kind of crawl up like this. So they had almost like diagonal tracks. And then when you got to the nest, it was sort of a nice little sort of dip in the sand. If it was a green, first off, they're much heavier, so they kind of had to go like this. I'm sure this is going to be taken out of context. They had to use both front legs at the same time in order to actually haul themselves up the beach because of how heavy they are. And then if you found their nest, it was literally like something huge had just gone and belly flopped in the sand. Like, you would have had no idea that they would have spent hours crafting this nest. Now, a fun fact about them is that unlike what you might suspect, they are called green turtles not because of the colour of their shell, but because of the colour of the fat layer between their body and their shell. Now we have the loggerhead. These guys are found in every ocean around the world, but unfortunately they are also endangered with around 60,000 nesting females. This species is carnivorous, and they are specifically designed to eat hard-shelled animals, for example crabs, conches and whelks, and that's why they're called the loggerhead, because of the shape and size of their jaw. Loggerheads will lay around 4 clutches of 100 to 120 eggs in a season at around 14-day intervals. Fun fact, they can carry between 50 and 100 different species of plants and invertebrate animals, so animals without a backbone, on their backs, including barnacles and crabs. Now we have possibly my favourite of them all, the leatherback. This is the oldest surviving species of sea turtle. They have been around for over 150 million years, meaning they survived the extinction of the dinosaurs. Unfortunately, despite this, human activity has really been getting to this species. They are now critically endangered. There are only around 20 to 30,000 nesting females left. These guys mainly eat jellyfish and squid, and they tend to nest every 3 to 4 years, which is quite a long time interval between seasons, but they need to build up so much energy to nest again. When they do lay, they tend to lay between 7 and 11 times in a season, and this is around 10-day intervals. They'll lay between 65 and 110 eggs within each nest. Fun fact, leatherbacks are one of the deepest diving marine animals, reaching depths of up to 1,250 metres or more. They are also the fastest aquatic reptile, reaching speeds of up to 35 kilometres an hour. Number 6 on our list is the hawksbill turtle. These guys are critically endangered. Unfortunately, there are only around 8,000 nesting females left in the world. A large part of this is due to the trade in their gorgeous looking shell. If you see things that are advertised as real tortoise shell, that's generally what it is. It's hawksbill turtle shell. And before the trade in it was banned, the hunting for this tortoise shell almost drove the species to extinction. And even now, trade in tortoise shell on the black market is thriving. These guys have a specialised diet, so they feed almost exclusively on sponges. And their beak, which they are named after, is specifically designed to reach into all those cracks and crevices in the coral reefs to find their food. Like loggerheads, they lay around 4 times in a season at around 14-day intervals, but these guys lay way more eggs, around 140 to 200 eggs per nest. Fun fact, the sponges that hawksbill turtles eat contain toxins which build up in the turtle's flesh after they eat them, and actually makes their flesh poisonous to humans if they are consumed. And last but not least, we have the Kemps Ridley. Now these guys are the smallest sea turtle in the world, and they are closely related to the olive ridley. This species is critically endangered, and they are possibly the most endangered species of sea turtle in the world. But they are in a much better place than where they were in the 1960s, where they nearly went extinct. When authorities in Mexico, where Kemps Ridleys primarily nest, realised the dire situation this species was in, they implemented strict protection laws to try and increase the populations of this species, and it has worked. Nesting females increased to around 200 in the 1980s, and now officially the numbers say that the population of nesting females could be anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000, but it's generally estimated that the total population is anywhere from around 7,000 to 8,000. In terms of diet, crab are this species' absolute favourite, but they do also eat other animals, including mollusks, jellyfish, shrimp and fish. This is the only sea turtle species known to primarily nest in daytime. Other species can be seen nesting in the daytime, but it's not particularly common. 95% of this species nest in Mexico, and then the remaining 5% tend to nest in Texas. Like olive ridleys, they can aribada. They tend to lay around 2 to 3 clutches per season, with around 100 eggs in each nest. Fun fact, they were named after a fisherman called Richard Kemp who helped discover them. Editing Francesca here. I'm sorry about my red face. I decided to edit this in the middle of a heatwave, and I'm an idiot and don't have a fan, so I'm having a fantastic time. I'm going through the footage at the moment, and it's looking like this is going to be a really long video if I don't split it into 2, so that's what I'm going to do. This seems like a good place to end it before I go on to anything else. So I will have a second video up for you very soon, talking about turtle life cycle, their threats, and what we as humans can do to help them. So I will let you know when that's going to be uploaded. But thank you very much for watching. I know this was a lot of information in one video, so if you're still here, thank you for sticking with me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell to find out when I upload, and have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye.